Hi guys, today is a freezing cold day in England. That's why I'm in my snuggly cardigan here, and the fact that it's very cold has me grumpy. But you know what has me really grumpy? The fact that I had to read this book. Right, I'm going to do you all a favour now by sharing my review of a free book on Amazon which I got called Friends with Partial Benefits by Luke Young. It's supposed to be, or it's billed as, a laugh out loud, sexy romantic comedy. May it never darken your Kindle. I'm sharing this here because Amazon refused to publish my review due to adult language and content. So that's your warning. That is your warning that this review will contain major spoilers, adult language, adult themes, lots and lots of swearing on my part, because this book got me so angry that I want to punch the person that wrote it. It's that bad. This has to be one of the worst books I have ever read, and I have read some trash in my time. I like to give indie authors a fair trial because I'm an indie author myself and I've got lots of writing friends. So when I find books on Amazon or on Kindle by people that I don't know of, I will give them a go. The worst part about this book is the fact that it doesn't actually seem to be an indie author. This seems to be someone that's actually got a huge fan base and a lot going for him. I cannot understand why. I really can't. I cannot understand the positive reviews, and I really can't understand why people like this and why there seems to be 3 or 4 of them in this series, because it is God's awful. It's that awful that I'm that annoyed that I'm puffing. I'm vaping. It's that bad. So if I do get a little bit stressed and have a little puff halfway through, then you know why. Okay, what can I say about a book that manages to include every single bad thing about the male species and many of the females too? What can I say about this book? I'm going to say a lot. I am going to say a lot because a lot of people have been sitting here like rubbing their hands together waiting for one of my famous rants to come out, and this is the time, people. This is the time. This is when it's coming. This is a Will's rant. There is a Willow rant coming right up, and you need to buckle the fuck up because it's going to get hairy. The storyline, and I actually laugh at this, I laugh at the fact that it's a storyline, is almost non-existent. If you count, unless you count everybody being mindlessly obsessed with sex as a storyline, and the fact that they all seem to have zero respect for themselves and each other. Because that's a great basis for a book, isn't it? That's what we want to read. That's what we need in life. I mean, we don't get enough of that in the real world and on telly. You know, this is what we need in a book. Books are our fantasy. Books are our escape. And now it's just been fucking shoved in our face by this twat. Okay, we meet Gillian, a romance novelist who's apparently hugely horny all of the time. But she's never had good sex and had a cheating ex-husband to boot. You know, as you do. This is predictable, but it could be forgivable if it was written well, which it's not at all. Gilly has this best friend that makes Samantha from Sex and the City look like a virgin nun. In fact, I'm actually pretty sure that this is where the author got his idea for this from. He was sitting there one night, flicking through TV channels, found some reruns and thought, that'll do. That's how I get into this romance writing thing. Job done. Yeah, I don't think so. It's not job done. This, oh my god, this is just awful. Okay. Next, I'm taking a little tour of the characters here. Next we meet Rob, who's Gillian's son, and his roommate, Brian. Because Brian's a fantastic name. I don't know why. Brian is just a name that I'm really not a fan of. But anyway. Brian is enamoured of this female because she can lift her leg up over her head. But I'm sure she's got a great personality as well, right? Brian says that this sight changed his life. And rather than be impressed by her skills, he's staring, trying to catch a glimpse of her underwear, which he can't see, and he notes because she's either wearing a thong or nothing at all. How He looks really closer, and he's convinced he can see a hint of her parts in the crease between her legs. Lovely. Don't worry. No, he says that he's impressed by her athletic ability, but more so by the firmness of her ass. Then they sort of start unofficially dating. Unofficially dating is how they put it. Nothing more than making out a little bit, which Brian isn't that happy with. As it's actually put in the book, there was no removal of clothes or touching of parts, not even any dry humping. Brian would leave her dorm room, usually bent over at a strange angle and very frustrated. He wanted to see her naked, and he wanted to see her strike that ballet pose while naked. Because that's all that matters, right? Getting her naked. Rob, he's not much better. He's got this long distance girlfriend that he thinks about dumping because she's not putting out enough. Classy dudes, these. Classy. You can tell their mama's raised them right. Though, considering we're about to get to Rob's mama, definitely not. They talk to their friends like women are nothing but a means to an end. A physical relief for their needs. Never mind the needs of a woman. I mean, that doesn't count. For these guys, it's all about any hole's a goal. This is their whole meaning in life. Any hole's a goal. Okay? Okay, back to Brian and Bendy Girl, whose name's actually Natalie, by the way. Though I'm surprised Brian even bothered to ask her or find out what her name was. They've been taking things slowly, and because he's not getting anywhere fast, Brian decides to read her diary. During an argument where he finds out that she's still kind of dating her high school boyfriend, he confronts her about the diary evidence. Apparently, "Oh, you wanted me to read it. You left me alone in your room for 45 minutes, telling me you'd be right back and told me to read something. It was right there on the bed next to me." Yes, because that's written permission, isn't it, Brian? They stop talking for a while, and Brian goes into full-out stalker mode. I'm full out, knowing that she walks past at around exactly 10:58 a.m. because that's normal, right? Then we have this nice little bit of man-shaming from Rob, because, you know, as you do. Well, they're talking about girls' tennis skirts, and he says, well, the men might as well wear them, with all that skipping around after a ball in little white shorts. A real sport involves men getting dirty or smashing into each other, and there's always a good chance of getting hurt while playing. Unless it's got that, it's not a real sport. Well done, Rob. Manly man. Gillian, back to the mama, goes on a date with a man called Mike, who is apparently not just a sore loser, but a bit of a sex pest. Okay, they're playing tennis, because this seems to be like the only thing that this book is involved. Sex and tennis. Sex and tennis. Lovely. And he's not winning as he wanted to. So he serves the ball right at her and smacks it into her body. And she does nothing about it. Nothing. She just glares at him. He then assumes he can drink from her bottle of water. And when she turns him down for another match, he pushes for an actual real drink. She returns with a beer, and he's naked in her pool. No invite, he's just there. He's just there, floating around her pool. And she knows he's naked because one of the many bad attempts at humour that this book has is right here, while she's talking about his unkempt, bushy pubic hair. Jill, she kind of finds some balls at this point. Thankfully not his, because, you know, maybe she couldn't find them with all that pubic hair. I'm seeing it as kind of like a toupee down there, but maybe I'm wrong. And she asks him why he's doing it. Apparently, she had a sexy, angry look on her face that was giving him come-on signals. So us women, we can't even be pissed off without men thinking that we're after their nuts. You know, that's because that's how the world works. So that's how this book works, apparently. So Rob and Brian go to Mama's for spring break, and their conversation on the way there in the car consists of Brian wanting to get laid. Brian talking about Bendy Girl, and this is a direct quote, as he fantasises about her leg ability. Then he exhaled loudly in an odd sex offender sort of way. What the fuck? You can't joke about shit like that in a book. You shouldn't joke about it anywhere, but you can't joke about this shit. The cheap attempts at getting a laugh in this book are just horrendous, okay? They are awful. So anyway, Rob and Brian go to Mum's house, and apparently there's like this instant attraction. Because yes, that's where it's going. That's where it's going, people. He thinks that she's hot. She can't stop staring at his body. Blah, blah, blah. Now, keep in mind that this is her son's roommate. Her college senior son. With me so far? Okay. Though, I'd like to point out that Brian isn't actually picky. Not at all. Because as soon as he gets to the house, he's like literally eyeballing Gillian. Like, eyes on stalks. She's laying by the pool. And then we get this long ass massive paragraph about her body, which I'm not going to go into now. Because like most of the book, it's cringy and creepy in equal portions. And I won't make you all listen to that. I'm not that evil. Pretty evil, but I'm not that evil. But it's cool because, you know, then they get into this conversation about the tennis court and, you know, so there could be something of substance between them because you kind of need that in a book, some substance and something that actually relates the characters together rather than wanting to bang each other and bone each other. Yeah, cool. Okay, the rest of the story is pretty obvious, okay? I'm not really going to get into it too much because there's much more of this plot that I'm just annoyed about because I'm remembering it now. I read this book about a week or so ago and I got so pissed off, and now I've kind of like reread it a little bit so I can kind of find bits for you guys, and I'm just like there's a few will they won't they moments, and Slutty Friend is like everywhere making inappropriate comments, and the blokes aren't able to take their eyes off her and all this kind of rubbish. In fact, the first time you meet this character, her name is Victoria, is when she's on the phone to Gillian while a younger man has his head buried between her legs. This is the introduction. Only 2 blocks away, Victoria was sitting on the sofa in her living room wearing a skin-tight cleavage-featuring top. She had just turned 39 but looked much younger, as she was in spectacular shape and dressed like a woman in her 20s. Now, I've got no problem with a woman dressing however they want. I really don't. And I don't think that clothing and what you can wear should be determined by your age or body shape. But once you read more about this woman, you will know why I hate her if you actually ever decide to read this book, and I sincerely hope that you don't. Okay, what follows in this scene is completely cringe-worthy discussion about Gillian's lack of porn and her constantly asking Victoria if it's a good time, and is she interrupting anything while her friend moans and groans and pants down the phone. Like, what even is this? This is basically the entire substance of the plot and the story. Slatting around. Okay, the men only wanted girls because they're hot. Now, I've got no problem with sex for the sake of sex. Okay, between consenting adults. I say you do you. But it's the attitudes and the lack of respect from the male characters and the way that the women just don't seem to notice or have any issue with it. That is my problem with this book. Okay, and at the end when they get together, they get together and they've literally got nothing in common but tennis and sex. Tennis and sex, that's it. That's the foundation for a lasting relationship right there. She doesn't even know that he's actually 5 years older than her son until he asks her to marry him. And it felt like this was kind of like a glossing over by the writer to make it more acceptable as a storyline. But the whole way through this book, you've had this thought that this is like a 19-year-old boy with like a 40-year-old woman. Someone that they've talked about him being not that sexually experienced or anything like that, or worldly wise. And then we find out right at the very end, and it's like the tiny little like afterthought that's been shoved on in there, that he's actually 5 years older than her son after he's asked her to marry him. When they've had like no time together, no real dating, no real relationship, he's asking her to marry him. Anyway, some of the language and the moments in this book, they're not even worthy of the word laughable. Cringeworthy is the best description that I can come up with, and I lost count of the amount of times that I face-palmed myself into near unconsciousness at how cliched and rubbish this book was. It's one of the main reasons that I can't get on with male writers when they turn their hand to romance, because a lot of the time it turns into something from Playboy, like a Reader's Wives edition. This is what happened to me one day when I was going into work and the lift got stuck and this sexy executive was in there with me. There was so much emphasis in this book on body parts that I honestly to the gods, expected a dick to bounce out of my Kindle and smack me between the eyes. It's just, they made sure it was really, really obvious that this was what it was all about. One line actually said that someone had a stunning vagina. Who the hell says that? This author, obviously, but apparently even the married guys in this book are sex obsessed. They're just sex crazed. There's one moment when Gillian actually goes in to see if Brian wants any breakfast, and she lets herself into his room while he's sleeping, and instead of doing like what a normal person would do, which might be like knock first and maybe like attempt to wake him up and go like, Brian, she kneels down beside his bed, and it says, the sheets continue to tempt, either from a random boner or possibly a sex dream featuring Natalie performing that ballet move. Feeling like it was much more literarily interesting, she went with the latter. Yes, she's spying on her son's best friend for book filler. No, not the actual book that I'm reading filler, the one that she's wanting to write. She's spying on her son's best friend, who she's never met before, that she met for 2 days, that is staying in her house, and she's spying on him to have stuff to put in her book. Are we not getting just how wrong this is? Okay? She then proceeds to lift the sheet and stare at him, watching his penis throb. Nice. But it's fine, because it's all impressive with its length and its girth. And she's never seen one so stunning, so I guess you gotta stare at that shit, But then she tells her friend about him, direct quote, makes a creepy purring sound at this information and demands pictures. But then she contents herself with just coming over and meeting this hot ass dude that's got the fabulous dick, because that's what you do. So she picks the tiniest bikini that you've ever seen in the world. It's like dental floss, this bikini. You can see everything in it when it gets wet, and that's made a real big point of, because she has this wonderful conversation with Gillian about being able to see her pussy through it and liking it. Before Brian wakes up, he's making a bit of a habit about spying on chicks at this pool, because he's staring at her and fondling his boner. That's how it's put. Because yeah, that's cool. That's fine. We can do this. Because in this book, apparently anything goes as long as it's sex related. You don't even want to know about the gym scene, which has Victoria coming in while Brian's working out. But if I have to suffer it, so do you. She comes in and she sprays herself all over the water bottle, to get even more see-through. And then she starts suggestively manhandling half the gym equipment while carrying on a conversation with Brian. And she's bending over, shoving her ass in his face. And she's getting into a position that left a front undercarriage on full display to him. Fully out there. This is beaver in the face territory. I can tell that the entire scene was supposed to be funny, but it's just not. It's literally so embarrassing to read, and it's just not nice, because it reads like cheap porn. That noise in the background is my cat's having a fight, by the way. I'm just going to mention some of the other disturbing aspects of this book, like Gillian thinking that eating a pretzel and drinking a Coke will make her okay to drive home after 3 cocktails on an empty stomach. Thankfully, she doesn't actually do it, but only because she ends up at the cinema with Brian. This is after going on another disastrous date. One line is, Basically, you 5th-degree sexually assaulted me. That's actually used in the book. But it's okay, because he found it hilarious that she was like that. So, dodged a bullet there, Gillian. Gillian, at one point, gets drunk and confesses to Brian that she spied on him in bed, but he's got a gorgeous penis, and she's going to make it even by wanting him to see her newly shaved bits. Like, her lady garden is no longer a garden, it's just a lady bit, because she's shaved it all off. Fair's fair, I suppose. You know, I've seen yours, you see mine. There's touching, there's kissing, there's general kind of like exploring things that in any other book might possibly have been acceptable. But again, this whole thing just feels creepy and wrong on so many levels that I can't even begin to explain it. As Brian puts it, we'd be on Jerry Springer on the My Best Friend Slept With My Mum show. The crazy, slutty best friend takes an opportunity to feel Brian up at some point, and she invites him back to her place, which he agrees to do, though thankfully he's too stoned. So dodged another one there, Brian. We find out at one point that Bendigo has been sleeping with Rob. Stop hissing, Seffi. But Brian punches him, and then they get drunk, and everyone seems to get over it pretty quickly, because, you know, like, she's hot, and that's what happens. Then we've got another one who offers, after getting ragingly drunk, to have a couple of cokes and in an hour I'll drive you home. But it's okay, it's okay, because that's Rob's girlfriend. He's like long distance girlfriend, and she'll make do with touching Brian up because he's got this gorgeous dick that apparently no one can resist. I think I actually rolled my eyes right out of my head reading this. But hey, again, it's okay. Because Bendigo apparently likes this violent punching streak that Brian seems to have, and she wants him back. Yay, Brian! So, she's a technical virgin. That's what they call it, a technical virgin. So, you're only going to get mouth and arse action, Brian. Sorry about that. But, you know, he's going to, like, mess around for another 2 weeks with her before he goes back for the mama loving. So, you know, just so that he's not worried about anything or just not getting his quota of getting sexiness. Apparently he is an anal sex magnet. That's what's actually written in the book. Him saying that he's an anal sex magnet, as he's been offered it 4 times in 10 days. Give the boy a medal and a cookie to make himself even prouder of that. And do not get me started on there's oh my god, I had Mamma Mia flashbacks. Dot dot dot. Oh, dot dot dot. No. The sex in this book is just ew. It's not flattering. It's not sensitive. It doesn't even seem to move the plot along at all. Probably because there is barely any plot, and it is just awful. The sex seems to be the whole of the plot, really. This, aside from the horrendous writing, the puns, the ridiculous innuendos, the cringy way that everyone is judged by their bodies and hotness, and the things that the males actually dare say to these females, and the other way around, there's actually slightly like homophobic tones to this book as well, with mentions of gays. And this is a direct quote again. Let me get you some clothes, because we need to walk through the gay beach and get to the topless one, and we don't want to give those guys the wrong idea. Here is a paragraph showing their views on things. As Rob had said, he and Brian had to walk through the gay beach to get to their topless destination, and was shocked by the groups of guys hanging out together in their tiny, tight bathing suits. They saw a good percentage of these guys fooling with their equipment, evidently striving to make and maintain the best impression. They saw about 24 topless women on the beach that day. No supermodel was there, as far as they could tell. A few of the women were attractive, and Rob enjoyed himself a whole lot more than Brian. Because, of course, all gay men want to do is fondle their equipment and stare at you and try and seduce the straights, I suppose, because, you know, it's that whole male ego thing of, oh my god, that man's gay, so he's going to want me. Doesn't matter that you could be this 40 stone man with a massive beer belly and be a complete knob. They're going to want you because you have a dick. That's all there is to it. Every gay guy in the world is going to want you. Lovely. So, what even the fuck is that, honestly? It's stereotypical and insulting to gay men and women in general, because the only thing they care about is the fact that it's topless. That's my cat, by the way. That's Seffi. We also had a really lovely line of, I like having you naked in my bed like this. I feel like I've hired you or something. Romance. It's not dead. It's just hanging limply over the banister trying not to throw up. So, one thing I can't understand is how this book got so many great reviews on Amazon and on other platforms. How have so many women read this shit and thought it was brilliant, funny, sexy, romantic, and all the other things it's supposed to be, but it seriously fails to deliver? It's like I entered a kind of book Twilight Zone where nothing is as it should be and no one has any taste anymore. Basically, if you want to read crap with sexist lines and views and everyone obsessed with sex and badly written sex at that, read this. I dare you, because as I said, it's free on Amazon. I'm very glad that I never paid for this. Forcing myself to read to the end was punishment enough. It feels so good to get that out. Right, done for the day. As always, follow me on social media, come and have a chat with me, come and ask me any questions or advice, or just comment and just say hello, because I love to chat to people. And if you read this book, come back and tell me what you thought about it, because I would actually like to know other people's opinions on it, because I feel like I just got so angry about this book that I really didn't know where to go with it after that. So come chat to me. All I've got to say now is blessed be and happy writing, and I suppose happy reading.